All right, so we've chosen the position. Now we're going through a while loop. And so when I went through this while loop, our count is going to be 1. We set it at 1. And it's going to go all the way up until it's going to be less than 10. And that's because we only have 9 moves or 9 positions inside the tic-tac-toe game. Unless you win, unless the person wins ahead of time. So what I'm doing here is if the player equals this right here, right? I'm just pretty much putting, hey, game dot get player 1 is player. So I'm calling the get player 1, which is over here, and so it's the string of x. So I'm saying, let's see. So get player 1, return player 1. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. It's returning pretty much the x. And then player name is going to be player 1. Else, if the player dot equals game get player 1, it's confusing, right? So if the player, which is the position, right? Because we got this, so it's calling the position whether it's going to be an X or an O, because we made sure that on choose piece, player 1 is going to be either an X or an O. X or an O here, right? Actually, I should have just put in like nothing here because we're pretty much going to be setting that here, right? So that actually makes much more sense. Let's see if it runs, because I know board setup looks like it's not really happy. So let's make sure that it does not mess anything up here. We're testing as we go. So exciting, isn't it? So we went ahead and created the board, right? And let's pick U. Sorry, that is an invalid choice. All right, let's pick G. Let's pick 1. Okay, sorry. So let's pick X. Okay, let's pick 5. Okay, perfect. So everything still works. That's great news. All right, let's go ahead and click out of this. So yeah, we didn't even have to do that. We could have just created nothing and just played it there, because we're pretty much setting that bad boy over here. So if the player dot equals this wherever here, because we have to put in some type of value in there. I mean, we could put in null, but I decided to just put in just an empty string. So I pretty much am calling the position that we chose for player 1, and then player 1 is the name for player 1. Else if the player dot equals, which is whatever we called it, and what I'm trying to do is I'm switching the player share. So one question I had to ask myself is, dude, like, how do we know, or when, like, how do we switch players? Because, all right, if player dot equals, all right, game dot get player 1. So imagine if, all right, if player, because we already set up the here, like, it's okay. If player 1's X, all right, now we're testing if X equals, or if, yeah, the player X equals player 1, like if it's still his turn, let's switch that bad boy and make the player O. So we're pretty much just switching the player name, and now we're calling the player name 2, or player 2. And then over here it says, all right, so well, if player equals the player 2 position, well, let's switch it over to player 1. And then we're going to also rename the player name to player 1. So over here it's pretty much just switching. All right, if you're playing 1, okay, now it's time for player 2. If you're player 2, then it's time for player 1. And it's going to be going through that every time it goes through this position. So let's run this code and kind of see what's going on. Because I know it could be very convoluted, is what people are using nowadays, or right now. So, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm pretty much getting player, when I call the get player 1, I'm pretty much just calling the position that they chose, whether it was X or O. Let's go ahead and run this, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we choose a position, we'll pick for player, let's pick X. All right, player 1, because we know that when it ran, so it chose a position, when it ran, it created the board, right? display the board. Now you want to choose a position where is a location. Let's put 1. Okay, perfect. So it chose the piece, and now it's choosing the position. Oh man, I already skipped ahead. So anyways, so over here it says player 1. We chose a piece and choose position. Oh, I see. So over here pretty much just sets everything up. So if it's already here, if it's nothing, then we're going to call him player 1, and that's where we call player 1. We put the player 1 name here, and when we choose the position, we put player 1. Please choose a location on the board from 1 to 9, and this is where we actually check. So we put in the next string here, keyboard.next line, and the reason why I have to put a string is because I made the position into a string up here. I mean, I could have easily just put in, where is it? I could have easily put in next int, right? But it's going to give me an error because we know that position is actually a string. And the way to actually convert a string into an integer is by using the integer.parseInt. So what we're doing is we're pretty much converting this position, which is supposed to be a number. We put it in here, and it converts it into an integer, and that's what we're returning back out. And that's what we're returning here as the position number. And so imagine we're running this, and we're actually right here, as we can see, player 2, because we switched players. But what if I put in like an R? Let's convert an R into an int, right? It's going to throw you an error. And I didn't have time to fix that error because this one took a long time for me to just do. But that's going to throw you an error because right now it just can't do that. I mean, we could. Yeah, I'm going to stop right there. So, and then we'll go to test position as our next video, and we'll explain what I did there.